Alright, so check this out. You've heard of John D. Rockefeller, right? Yeah, that guy. The oil tycoon, business mogul. The kind of dude who had the money that most people at the time probably couldn't even begin to comprehend. But here's the thing. It wasn't just oil with this guy. Rockefeller wasn't just swimming around in cash covered in crude oil while laughing at the rest of us. Though he was laughing at us. This man invented your education system. Let that sink in for a second. The guy who built Standard Oil is the same guy who built the foundation for how you're taught. That's right, you're all sitting in a Rockefeller-sponsored indoctrination camp and didn't even know it. Well, this is becoming pretty common knowledge. I keep seeing this everywhere, so maybe a lot of you knew it. But anyway, how did he pull this off? Well, in the 1930s, he founded something called the General Education Board, and he threw $129 million into it. And before you go, yeah, 129 million, whatever, I've seen rappers with that kind of cash. This was 1930. 129 million back then was like $1 billion today. That was, I'll buy your country and make you thank me for it kind of money. That's right, folks. Rockefeller was out here playing God with the education system while most of us were just trying to figure out how to afford lunch. And this wasn't some feel-good philanthropy. No. This was corporate lobbying before we even knew what corporate lobbying was. He's over here shaping education the same way he shaped the oil industry, by buying the hell out of it. You thought school was learning? No, school was about making sure Rockefeller's oil empire ran smooth as butter. Forget the Pythagorean theorem. You were getting prepped for a life in one of his factories. The man didn't need thinkers, he needed workers. Good little obedient cogs in the machine. And it gets better. The education system was just one piece of this empire. The man didn't stop there. Oh no. He had his filthy hands in everything. Oil, obviously, but also healthcare. He funded campaigns to discredit holistic medicine like, oh, you want to drink some herbal tea? Nah, buddy, you need some of this Western medicine. Forget those plants. Here, take a pill and don't ask questions. He ran healthcare just like he ran his oil company. If it didn't make him money, it didn't make sense. And while we're at it, let's not forget the Federal Reserve. Yeah, the money machine. Rockefeller had his greasy fingers in that too. So now he controls oil, education, healthcare, and the monetary system itself. You ever play Monopoly? Yeah, it's like playing Monopoly where one guy already owns all the properties and the bank. And here's the kicker. This guy's still winning even though the game should have been over by now. The man was unstoppable. So next time you're sitting in a classroom, or paying your healthcare bills, or even filling your gas tank, just remember, you're living in a world built by one dude, one guy who figured out that if you want to control everything, you don't just corner the oil market, you corner the people. And how do you do that? You train them. You indoctrinate them. You make them believe whatever the hell you want them to believe. Think about it. And then, of course, this guy Rockefeller, he wasn't just throwing money around. No, he was strategic. The man understood propaganda like Michelangelo understood marble. He hired people who were masters at manipulating public perception. One of those guys? Frederick T. Gates. Not the guy who sells you Windows updates every 2 weeks. Different Gates. This guy was all about shaping public opinion and social structures. And then there's Ivy Lee. Here's a name you probably haven't heard of, but you should. You see, Ivy Lee is known as the father of modern public relations. You know who else he worked for? Nazi Germany. You heard me. The same guy who helped Hitler run his little PR campaign? Rockefeller hired him to sell oil to the masses. That's right, the same guy who convinced a country to march into some of the darkest chapters of human history was the same guy pushing Rockefeller's oil over coal. Now, think about the kind of skill it takes to get people on board with atrocities. To make them go, hey, maybe this whole evil empire thing isn't so bad. You gotta be a wizard at this stuff. And Rockefeller's like, yeah, I'll take 2 of those, please. He hired Ivy Lee to help reshape the narrative around oil to convince people that oil was the future, not coal. Oil, baby. It wasn't just about fueling cars, it was about fueling a new world order. And it didn't stop at oil. The man didn't want people to just buy oil, he wanted them to buy into a whole new way of life. He needed people to accept this concept of a job. Before this, people didn't think in terms of long-term employment. That wasn't a thing. Jobs were like, hey, you build this barn today, I'll pay you. Done deal. Rockefeller was like, nah, let's make sure people are trading their lives for money. but let's make it sound respectable. And Ivy Lee's like, sure, I can sell that. I just sold fascism after all. And then he infiltrates the education system. Oh yeah, you thought your schooling was just about learning? Ha! No, it's about training. You see, this is where Rockefeller's propaganda really took hold. He gets his people on the boards of education, pumps millions into it, and suddenly your education system is all about memorization and repetition. You're not learning to think critically, you're learning to repeat and repeat and repeat, like some kind of human parrot. If you can convince people that education equals memorization, guess what? You don't have to teach them the truth. You just have to teach them what you want them to know. Facts, history, science, you control it all. You feed them whatever narrative you want, and they'll parrot it back like it's the gospel. So now, they've got people locked into this mental matrix, and they can't even see the bars. And here we are, almost 100 years later, and we're feeling the effects of it. We've raised generations who think that being educated means knowing how to memorize the right answers, not how to ask the right questions. That's the real trick, folks. If you don't know how to ask the right questions, you're stuck. And Rockefeller, man, he knew that. He didn't just want your time, your money, your labor. He wanted your mind. And he got it. And it's like, you ever notice how some people are too intellectual for their own good? You know the type. They went to all the best schools and got a master's degree in some nonsense, and now they think that they've got all the fucking answers. You try to talk to them about something outside their little bubble, and they look at you like you're speaking blasphemy. They'll say, oh, no, that's not how it works. And then we say, well, how the hell do you know? And they say, well, they didn't teach me that in school. So yeah, memorization, that's how they know, not because they've thought about it. No, they memorized it, like a walking, talking textbook with zero capacity for independent thought. But here's the question they never ask themselves. Who wrote the damn curriculum? I'll tell you who, the same people who benefit from you not thinking for yourself. We've seen stuff like this in movies, like The Matrix. The most powerful matrix is the one you can't see, the one you don't even know exists. That's the real trick. If you're sitting there thinking, well, I'm not in any matrix, surprise, you're already in it. And the fact that you don't even realize it, as I'm telling you, that's by design. It's like hiding a prison in plain sight, but they've convinced you it's your paradise. But here's the thing. Just the fact that we're becoming aware of all this, that's a good sign. It means the Matrix isn't all-powerful. It means we're starting to gain a little bit of power back. Because awareness is the first step. If you don't see the bars, you can't break out of the cage. But once you start recognizing the system for what it is, you're on the path to freedom. And the education system? That's one of the biggest matrices out there, but we're just waking up to it now. The stuff we've been seeing lately with all the body dysmorphia, the gender confusion, all this indoctrination, it's got people going, wait a minute, they've been using the schools to control us? Yeah, no kidding. It's not just about reading and writing anymore. It's about molding minds. And who benefits from that? The same people who benefit from a compliant, controlled population. Now, think about it. What rational person thought it was a good idea to stick kids in a classroom for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week? Who the hell thinks children want to sit and learn for that long? They don't have the attention span for that. I don't have the attention span for that. We have all had to suffer trying to sit through a full day of school as a kid. It's like a prison sentence, and it's hard not to fall asleep or fail to pay attention for periods of time. And yet we act like this is totally normal. But wait, it's not about learning, is it? No. It's about conditioning. They're training kids to get used to the 8-hour workday from the time they're in kindergarten. That's right. School is just workforce training in disguise. Hey kids, welcome to your future. 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Get used to it. School's not about education. It's about making you a cog in the system. One is just the training wheels for the other. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you can start figuring out how to break free. And have you ever asked yourself why in the actual fuck does school have to start at such a specific early time? Like if it has to be 8 hours, why not fucking like 10? Why not start at 10 and go from there? Why do you have to get up in those early wee morning hours when you're still groggy and you still want to get a couple hours of sleep? Why? I think it's just to fuck with you. Like just to fuck up like every day your body's not getting something that it wants and that it needs to grow properly. And so much of what they do in this system is all about that. Look at how schools are set up. It's like a little military camp for your brain. Everything is structured down to the minute. They've got these bells ringing every hour like you're some Pavlovian dog drooling at the sound. Bell rings. Oh, time to shuffle off to the next class. You're not allowed to go until they say so. And don't even think about eating when you're hungry. No, no, no. You eat when they say it's lunchtime. And God forbid you try to have a little snack, take a little bite in the middle of class. And if you gotta take a leak, you better raise your fucking hand, and you better hope you get a bathroom pass, or you'll be holding it until the bell. It's all training, man. Training you to follow authority and never question it. If you're not a good little student, what happens? You get detention. If you're not a good little worker, you end up in jail. It's the same damn thing. Detention is just kiddie jail. And school? That's just a miniature version of the adult world. They're prepping you for the big leagues. Life is a cog in the machine. Follow orders, don't think too much, and keep your head down. And then there's what they teach you, like, it creates a false idea in your head that you've been taught. And they're just teaching you things that you would learn on your own, just going through life, just existing. They're teaching you just enough to say they taught you. And they know damn well they're not teaching you the important things that you need to know to succeed, which I'll get into later. On to my next point. People think that the government is behind all this. Like they came up with the education system. Nah, the government's just the middleman. The real power? That's the people who've been infiltrating and pulling the strings all along. You know how far money goes? You throw enough of it around and suddenly you're writing the textbooks. And who's behind it? The same dynasties that have been dead for decades, but their systems? They're still alive and kicking. Think about it. The Board of Education? These are the people who decide what goes in your textbooks. They decide what your kids learn. And more importantly, what they don't learn. Hey kids, sit down for 8 hours, memorize this crap, but don't you dare think for yourself. They're not teaching you critical thinking. They're teaching you how to regurgitate, like a little bird being fed half-chewed worms. You're supposed to swallow it all down without question. Now, why do they do this? Because they don't want a nation of thinkers. They want a nation of workers. And that's not my line, that's Rockefeller. He straight up said it. I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers. And his boy Frederick T. Gates, he took it even further. He said, we don't want a nation of scientists, we want men who are perfectly docile. Think about that. The whole point of the system was to create obedient little drones who will work, consume, and die without ever asking why. And why did Rockefeller do this? Because he needed a standardized workforce to power his machine. He didn't need people thinking for themselves. Hell no. He needed them to show up, punch in, and do what they were told. And that's how the whole education system was designed from the ground up, to feed his business empire. You're not in school to learn. You're in school to be trained and conditioned. Oh, here we go again, the good old 9 to 5. Just saying the words probably makes some of you clench up like you're having a stress flashback. It's like people get triggered if you even question it. How dare you challenge the sacred institution of the 9 to 5? Well, calm down, snowflake, because guess what? We're just talking facts here. The whole thing was created by one family, over 100 years, mind you. And here we are, still marching to the same drum. No one even asks why anymore. And while we're at it, let's talk about all the other bullshit that got bundled into the deal around the same time. You ever hear of Social Security? Yeah, paying into some imaginary fund until you're old enough to shuffle off this mortal coil, hoping you get a few crumbs in return. Oh, and your employer benefits? Because who doesn't love free stuff? Spoiler alert, nothing's free. The whole thing was a clever way to get you to buy in without realizing you were being played. Rockefeller and his cronies didn't just stop at your job. So they're fucking with your job, and they're going after your education too. The very foundation of how we learn, what they teach you in school, college, everywhere, was funded and shaped by the same guy. All of it. Not to make you a thinker, oh no. The last thing they want is a free thinker. The goal was to create a workforce that could read, regurgitate, and not ask too many damn questions. Now, before you get all bent out of shape about where you stand on this, ask yourself, whose game am I playing? That's the real question. Who's benefiting from you waking up every day, punching in, and falling in line? The 9 to 5 didn't just fall from the sky. It was created for a reason, and it sure as hell wasn't for your enlightenment. Education, folks. Real education. Real education teaches you to think freely and critically. But those are dirty words now. Try that at a university today and you'll get kicked out faster than you can say two biological Oh wait, you can't even say that anymore. Because apparently facts are dangerous. What I'm saying is that at least in some instances they'll literally have you escorted off campus if you just try to use your brain. In a school. Jordan Peterson, Brett Weinstein, these guys tried it, and they got booted. Why? Because they didn't regurgitate the right narrative. See, the public education system isn't interested in teaching you how to think. They teach you what to think. Big difference. It's like they're giving you a fish and saying, "Here, eat this. It'll keep you alive." But they're not teaching you how to fish. So when that fish runs out, what do? You're screwed. It's a classic sleight of hand, people. They're keeping you dependent, not enlightened. Alright, let's talk about healthcare. And like everything else in this twisted little world, it's all connected. Healthcare, education, the workforce, they all feed into each other like some Frankenstein monster of control. And guess who's standing there with the scalpel? Good old Rockefeller. The guy didn't just have his greasy fingers in oil, he practically invented Western medicine as we know it today. But first, let's set the stage. Before 1910, medicine was kind of a free-for-all. Decentralized, just like a lot of other things before the Industrial Revolution turned everything into an assembly line. Every town had its own way of doing things. You had the herbalists, the folks who swore by a good old bottle of moonshine to fix your problems, and the guy down the street who could slap a poultice on your wound and call it a day. Medicine wasn't this one-size-fits-all pill-popping circus it is now. Then came the 1910s, this little slice of history where everything changed so fast your head would spin if you actually bothered to pay attention in history class. You had these massive innovations coming out of nowhere. New technology, new industries, and surprise, surprise, new ways to screw over the common man. The world was flipping upside down so fast that the people who knew how to handle chaos and had the cash to back it took control of everything. Enter the Flexner Report. And no, I'm not talking about some conspiracy theory nonsense. I'm talking cold hard facts. The thing was funded by, drumroll please, Rockefeller. He backed it with so much cash, it practically came wrapped in dollar bills. The Flexner Report took the decentralized, more natural, holistic approach to medicine and smashed it to pieces. It paved the way for the first ever standardized medical education system. Before that, there was no official medical curriculum. Doctors were out there winging it. But now, thanks to this lovely little report, we had a set curriculum. You had rules, damn it. Here's what works, here's what doesn't. Here's what's true, here's what's complete horseshit. All in a neat little package. And guess what else came with that? The centralized medicine model we know and love today, funded and pushed by Rockefeller and his buddies. They ran propaganda campaigns to discredit anything that wasn't part of their new shiny system. Things like essential oils, natural remedies, naturopathic and homeopathic medicine, all that got flushed down the toilet in favor of something new and shiny. Pharmaceuticals. Now, let's ask the question that no one ever seems to ask. Why? Why the hell would Rockefeller care about medicine in the first place? Well, remember when we talked about how this guy was an oil tycoon? What's one of the main ingredients in pharmaceuticals? What do you need to make all those fancy pills? Petroleum. The same stuff he was making a killing off of in the oil industry was now being used to pump out pills by the truckload. He wasn't just shaping healthcare for the good of the people, folks. He was creating a whole new market for his product. You're not sick, you're a consumer. So next time you pop a pill, just remember you're swallowing a piece of Rockefeller's empire. Alright, let's keep the ball rolling here. So, you've got Rockefeller. And this guy isn't just playing Monopoly, he's playing 4D chess while everyone else is just figuring out how the pieces move. He's got his hands in education, banking, and even on the money supply. The man's taken over oil, so what's next on the menu? Healthcare. And why? Because there's a lot of money to be made telling people they're sick and selling them pills made out of, wait for it, petroleum. Yeah, you're literally eating it, folks. How's that for progress? So let's get this straight. Rockefeller's already rolling in dough, billionaire status just from oil alone. But that's not enough, right? No. You've got to control everything. So why does he push Western medicine? Why run propaganda to demonize anything natural? Because you can't make big bucks off of stuff that grows in your backyard. Nature heals you? Great, but try selling that in the bottle. That's not a business model. That's a garden. Now, pharma? That's where the real cash is. You can charge people for every little pill they pop, and those pills are made with, that's right, petroleum. So, Rockefeller, this oil titan, positions himself to benefit from both ends. He's making money selling you the problem and then making money selling you the solution. And the people eat it up. Literally. The man was a billionaire in the early 1900s. Billionaire with a B. What more do you need? At what point do you sit back and say, yeah, I've got enough? But that's the thing, isn't it? The ego, folks. The ego never has enough. You could have all the money in the world, all the power, and it's still like a black hole. It just keeps pulling you in until you finally realize that the only way out is to let go. Help other people. Find some fulfillment that doesn't come with a price tag. But that's a lesson most people never learn. So let's not pretend Rockefeller was just some evil mastermind cackling in his lair. No, a little bit of that power-hungry maniac is in all of us, unless you've done some serious inner work to get past it. That's the real takeaway here. Forgive, move forward, and try to build something better. Now, let's get back to healthcare. This system we have, this Western medicine, it's a beast, no doubt. And I'm not here to say that it's all bad. Hell, Western medicine has done some incredible things. We're living in a world where diseases that used to wipe out entire populations are now just mild inconveniences. So yeah, it's got its place, but let's not forget who funded it and why. You want to be a doctor? A nurse? A lawyer? Guess who decided what you're going to be taught? Rockefeller and his friends. He funded the system, funded the curriculum, and made sure you're learning exactly what they want you to learn. So now, in 2024, we've got experts in every field who can't agree on basic facts. You go to one dentist, he tells you fluoride is a neurotoxin. Go to the other, and he looks at you like you just walked out of a hippie commune. Fluoride's been safely used for 100 years. Yeah, right. This is the problem. We're not even having the right arguments. Everyone wants to argue about what's right, but no one's asking the deeper questions. Where did this information come from? Who controls the curriculum? Who's making the money? The moment you put money behind anything, education, healthcare, whatever, you're opening the door to corruption. It's not a conspiracy. It's just common sense. If there's a profit to be made, someone's going to figure out how to twist it in their favor. Some real power comes out of just accepting this about the world. Stop resisting and start figuring out how to make something better. That's how we get to a better world. One where we're not just pawns in someone else's game, but actually creating something new. Let me tell you about these folks I've met, and I'm sure you've bumped into a few of them too. You know, the ones who think that everything is being orchestrated by a group of Satanists at some round table. Yeah, they think there's a cabal of shadowy figures rubbing their hands together, planning to control every chemtrail in the sky, every pixel on TV, every thought in their heads. Like the entire world is one big conspiracy and they're the poor saps caught in the middle of it. That's their reality. And you know what? That's the ultimate power move by the system. When you're so paranoid that you think everything is designed to control you, you're already controlled. They've already won, folks. Now, don't get me wrong, I believe in a lot of these things, maybe most of them, but you can't believe in all of them, and the majority of them are driven by paranoia, and connections are made and spoken about without ever showing any proof. Our ego, our inner God and our inner opposite of that we have to discern and either sink like toxic lead or rise like valuable gold. Anyway, I'm not getting into that right now. They've got you running scared from your own shadow, sitting in front of the TV, soaking up whatever CNN or Fox News or whichever network you're glued to. They want you busy, watching Netflix, tweeting your rage at some stranger about something that doesn't even matter. That's the plan. Keep you distracted, keep you divided so you never slow down long enough to see the real picture. It's genius. They've done an outstanding job of creating a society that doesn't think, doesn't connect, just regurgitates. Now let's talk about religion, because we gotta hit all the big systems, right? Here's the deal. Throughout history, religion has been used and abused to control people. Let's start with the word itself. History, which, by the way, is literally his story. And who's the his? It's the guys in power, the rulers, the priests, the ones telling the story. Take the Bible. Books have been ripped out of that thing like pages from a bad script. The holy text? It's been edited by man. Men, mind you, who are flawed, biased, and a little power hungry. And back in the day, churches didn't want you to read. I'm not making this up. They kept the population illiterate on purpose. Imagine this. There's this holy book, supposedly the Word of God, but you can't read it. To you, it's just squiggles on a page. Only the priests could read, and they were the ones telling you what it said. Think about that power dynamic. That's how religion held power for centuries. It wasn't about spirituality, it was about control. If anything, it was about hiding spirituality and the true nature of things. Because they're definitely hiding shit. And look, I'm not dunking on religion or the Bible. There's a ton of truth in that book. But I mean, they had to leave some truth in there, otherwise the whole thing would collapse under its own weight. But let's be real, a lot of it was manipulated for power grabs. The priests back then, they were the Andrew Tates of their time. Okay, bad example. Let's go with Beyonce. Yeah, that's much better. If you were a priest 500 years ago, you were Beyonce. Everybody wanted to be you. That was the original power move. You wanted status, validation, control. You didn't go into banking or politics. No. You went into the church. That was the OG power grab. And that's how the system worked, then and now. The only difference is the outfit and the way they move. So let's wrap this up and tie it all together. This is where we've come from, historically. And a lot of people don't realize this. Churches were infiltrated a long time ago. We're talking centuries before anyone had money as we think of it today. Before wealth ruled, it was all about knowledge. If you could read when others couldn't, you held a kind of power that no amount of modern wealth could touch. And that power was hoarded. Now we've got schools and the internet, and it's easy to forget how that monopoly on knowledge used to work. People back then didn't think you were just smart. They thought you had some kind of mystical power. Of course, human nature being what it is, that power got abused. It always does. And so, just like religion became a tool to control, every system of power ends up working the same way. No one is going to argue that the church, or the Bible, or Christianity itself hasn't been weaponized over the centuries, right? It's obvious. But here's the thing. Just because religion was used as a tool for control doesn't mean religion is inherently bad. The Bible isn't inherently bad. Christianity isn't inherently bad. And overall, the people definitely aren't inherently bad. Just like money, education, or medicine, they can all be great things, but in the hands of people with ill intentions, they can be used for evil. This is the same theme we keep seeing as we break down all these different systems, the centralization of power and human nature being at the root of the problem. And that's what I've been trying to get across in this message. Once you understand the mechanisms at play, you stop falling for the surface level solutions. It's not about switching one political system for another, or getting a different president, or even saying, this religion is better than that one. These are just band-aid fixes. The real issue is deeper. It's the same ego-driven, centralized power structures we've always had. As Einstein said, you can't solve a problem with the same thinking that created it. So, where does that leave us with religion? Well, we've already seen the pendulum swing from total religious domination, where you'd be beheaded for denying God, to a complete rejection of God in many places today. In our recent past, God was everywhere. It wasn't about being a good person. It was about conforming to the group. Now you say God in certain contexts, and people lose their minds. It's swung the other way, where religion is removed from anything, and in a lot of cases, we've lost that deeper connection to the core values religion can teach. Either being in the church, passionately seeking God and being restricted by the organized religious structure, or being outside the church and looking at the church and going, I'm not any part of that, that's for sure, and I don't think God is either. God must not be real. It's like a spell cast on everyone. But don't get me wrong, there's lots of people who do understand that we're all God. God is everything in the universe. Each one of us. This is where things get really interesting. We're seeing wars on God and wars on masculinity happening simultaneously. You look at someone like Andrew Tate, right? He didn't just blow up because of his marketing skills. He blew up because there's a huge segment of people who are starving for the kind of message he's putting out there, however flawed it may be. Why? Because there's been this concerted effort to squash what masculinity stands for, and to redefine what it is. Just like there's been an effort to squash the concept of God in public life and redefine what God is. People are craving something more because they've been deprived of it. Look, we used to use God to control people, and now we're stripping God out of everything. And that's not by accident. The same powerful forces that benefited from using religion realized it wasn't working anymore, so they shifted tactics. Now the agenda is to remove God entirely from the conversation before people rediscover the real freedom that comes from living in accordance with those core principles. The ones that don't benefit centralized power, but instead encourage unity and freedom. And that's why, like I've talked about before, this time we're living in feels so insane. Yeah, crazy things happened in the past, but we're living in a time where you can broadcast that insanity to the entire world in real time. People are infected with ideas that would have never traveled this fast 100 years ago. It's why you see things like mental health issues being glorified as something to aspire to, instead of addressed as something to heal. This is the result of stepping away from the foundation of truth. Now, we're in a unique moment, a very rare time period where the pendulum is swinging in the opposite direction, and a lot of people are going to regret not standing up for what they know is true when they look back. I don't want to be one of those people lying on my deathbed, wondering if I did enough to speak out during a pivotal time in history. People always say, "Oh, aren't you afraid to speak out? Don't you think they'll come after you?" And we can just ask, who's they? Because they're doing exactly what we're talking about here, thinking in terms of some shadowy group. This shadowy group resides in all of us. The real fear people should have is not speaking out and living with that regret. Studies show that most people regret what they didn't do, not what they did. If you stand up for what's true, you'll never regret it. But if you give in to fear and complacency, that will haunt you, and that's the kind of regret that sticks with you forever. All I'm saying is be willing to question yourself when someone questions you. Allow it to happen. Find the answer. Don't just go with your gut and get mad that they're questioning you in the first place. And if you don't want to put in the research and you don't want to confirm, then don't really speak on it, really. Like, if you're not willing to go down the path of figuring things out or proving your opinion, then just keep your opinion to yourself. Because what happens? You state it, and then someone proves you wrong, and you just get mad and like, blah, 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 blah. Free. Freedom. Squiggles. That's right. School is just work. Blah, 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 blah. Bidget. Blah, blah, blah. That's right. Why? To fuck with you. Like, just to fuck up every day. That's right. Time. Blah, 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 blah. On. Blah, blah, blah.